Now they're going to see why.
Rabbi Caruso, I am Cantor Sager's replacement for the week as far as giving the sermon. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I am deeply humbled to be in this place, in this hallowed place, in this storied place. This congregation has been one of the greats ever since I knew that there were Reformed congregations in this world. Fairmount Temple was the congregation. I just didn't know where Cleveland was. Great rabbis, one after the other. Great. And that's why I'm humbled to be here, to be in their shadow. Rabbi Caruso, your inroads into the outreach, into the interfaith community are lovely, and they do not go unnoticed in the ecumenical world. It is truly marvelous work you are doing, really. Rabbi Nosanchuk has given me 15 minutes. In that 15 minutes, I am to tell you what I believe, what my view of the spiritual synagogue of the 21st century and finding joy is. In 15 minutes. I gave that boy the best years of my life. And all I get is 15 minutes. I must say that I have an old friend. I have many old friends who are sitting here tonight, but one especially, and that is Pearl Haken. Her husband, David, may he rest in peace, was my professor in rabbinical school, my friend and my mentor, and I miss him. And he would have given me more than 15 minutes. So before I speak, I would like to say something. When I was asked by a reporter from the Cleveland Jewish News, were you Rabbi Nosanchuk's rabbi? I had to pause. Perhaps the news of my passing was a touch premature. I thought I still am the rabbi of Rabbi Nosanchuk. The story, good story, just an aside. A rabbi, a priest, and a minister wanted to share what they wanted at their eulogies. And so they talked to each other, and the minister said, when they see that box and they peer into it, I want them to say, look, there's a religious man there, a man of character. The priest said, no. When they peer into that box, I want them to say, look, there is a man of integrity there. There is a man who was the father to his flock. They turned to the rabbi and they asked the rabbi, and what do you want? And the rabbi said, I want them to say when they look into that box, look, he's moving. He told me he's not used it, so he's used almost everything else I've taught him. You've got to understand, I've known him since he's been 14 years old. We have been through the best times and the worst times of his life and my life. I had this thing that I used to do There were kids in the congregation who I thought could be, should be, might be rabbinic material. Didn't want them to know that. I just wanted to give them a little foretaste, a little spice of what it meant to work around a temple and to see what it was. So I gave them a job. As when they got their license, they were the official gopher. And I hired them over a summer, or sometimes part-time over the year, or sometimes both. And it produced wonderful results. We had 3 rabbis, 5 real estate tycoons, 3 attorneys, and 1 gynecologist. Each of them superb in their own field, as you can see. But it got hard to keep track. I used to, in order to ask them to do something or tell the secretary to have them do something, I used to react like I do with my family, and I used to go, tell Steve, Ron, and I couldn't get their names straight, so I called them all TK, which meant the kid. Rob was the longest-lasting TK. He never went away. He stayed. And then when he went to college, he even came back every now and then. And I called him TK all the way through, up until rabbinical school, when I thought he was old enough to have his own name. And I should be mensch enough to let him grow up and let him go. Oh, sure. You're proud of them when they do good. You hurt for them when life knocks them down. But you really never think of them as all grown up. Because when they do grow up, in your heart of hearts, you think that they really won't need you anymore. And you do feel like a was. Until something like this comes along. When somebody who you love asks you to come and see his new home and help him make magic. So that is my preamble. You can start your watches now. First of all, let me tell you, I am a flaming mystic. I must confess that the word spiritual or spirituality gives me a great deal of pause. For a long time, I associated it with the New Age churches of what's happening now, or sweat lodges, or crystals, or street dancers, and Birkenstocks, and Madonna, and little $35 pieces of string that were red that you tied around a wrist. In other words, it was all a little pagan and a little fuzzy around the edges. I used to get a little nervous witnessing the popularity of such Disney delights as The Lion King and Pocahontas. Pocahontas talking to enchanted trees and living peacefully among wild animals is now called spiritual. Religion, on the other hand, is Pocahontas receiving a dues statement from her local synagogue. Seriously, though, to me there is a difference between the religious and the spiritual. Religious people traditionally did not want to go to hell, so they made rules. They created dogmas. They wrote particular prayers so that they never had to think about what they wanted to say or do. It was all there for them, and generic became good enough. Then somehow all of that got codified, and all of the prayers and the rules and the rubric became set in stone, sacrosanct, sacred, and they became far more important than the belief or the understanding. And if you question, you don't believe, and if you believe, you don't question. With religion, the rules became everything. It became your faith. The spiritual, I know, are people who usually have been to hell, and they don't want to go back. All they have is belief. And they shape everything they do, their lives and their faith and their worship, around their conviction. My belief? Did I tell you that I was a flaming mystic? I think somewhere I did. So first and foremost, Anima amin be'emunah shlema. I believe with perfect faith that since we Jews from time immemorial have said that the very definition of Judaism is ethical monotheism, then I take the 4,000 years of Jewish philosophy at its word, that our faith and our God must mirror that description. Ethical, that there is goodness, that we must feel that goodness. Mono, single-mindedness, a focus of thought. Depth, D-E-P-T-H, with a capital D. And finally, theos, God, what I call love. That theos, that God, is not some bearded old man in the sky that says, you live and you die. Not an eternal sort of Santa Claus who gives us our wish when we wish for something if we are nice, and gives us nothing and worse if we are naughty. Not the Cecil B. DeMille basso voice from above or from within. But Anima amin be'emunah shlema, I believe with perfect faith that God is that underlying power and intellect in this universe that makes us love and want to care, because that ain't natural in this competitive, win-at-all-cost world of ours. Love is supernatural. God is that underlying power and intellect in this universe that makes us want to be good and want to have character. And God knows that in this day and age, that ain't natural. Because we don't want to get caught is usually the reason why we want to be good. And God is the underlying power and intellect in this universe that makes us want to think and to reason rather than to react, or worse, be on automatic pilot. And the objective of life, and here's the thing. The Talmud says that God is going to ask you 4 questions when you die. And the fourth and most important question of them all is, did you enjoy all of life's permitted pleasures? Were you happy? You know, money, power, things, they're wonderful to have, but they just don't cut it. Without joy, you're just a worm in horseradish. And to a worm in horseradish, the whole world is horseradish. Forgive my cynicism, but happiness without belief is non-existent. Think about it. The happiest people you know are people you don't know that well. Because stuff happens. Lots of stuff happens. Disease, death, anger, kids who don't always do what you ask them to do. Even the little things like losing your keys, being a little too heavy, the imperfections of life and people that never seem to go away. Friends that, well, are only too human, that let you down. To the point where I have a philosophy about that if you want to develop long friendships, get yourself a short memory. But to generate and to keep a belief in creating joy every day, you got to make it work for you. And that's hard work to do in this world. They call it in Hebrew avodah. Avodah means work. Avodah also means prayer. It is really a workout, making the problems and the possibilities all become one. Work at it to make the pain become gain. The service, the synagogue, the sanctuary were all meant to be and should be a workout facility, to bring you to goodness, to love, and to depth on a minute-by-minute basis and to condition yourself, to make it habitual, because in this ego-driven world of ours, it's all too natural to go back to what you were, to go back to the negative. The rabbi has to be a life coach, a different sort of a facilitator of faith, a personal trainer of the soul. Organized religion, too many of our synagogues have become service stations rather than spiritual centers, where we pull up and in our attendants give us a service. Shabbat here, a couple of bar mitzvahs there, a few weddings. How about high holy days on the side? Clergy have turned into the professional mourners of Job fame, wearing dark suits, murmuring meaningless words of memorized prayers without spending much time or effort, soothing the rough edges that grief and guilt leave behind. Most of the time, the clergy leaves the experience to the self-served. We walk in the door, walk out without even getting the windows of our souls cleaned. Did I tell you that I'm a flaming mystic? In other words, I'm one of those fanatics who believe in the spiritual, but I don't believe in organized religion. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shlema. I believe with perfect faith in disorganized religion. That the purpose of all faith and any faith is to maximize the frequency of positive emotions and minimize life's pain. In other words, to witness the true word and world of God, the world of all permitted pleasure. That has to be messy because it's so personal to each one of us. To be on a practical, personal level, it has to be disorganized. The challenge of the 21st century is to take the little ordinary things of our lives that we have to make you do that, the daily details, and turn them into spiritual moments without abandoning your grounding in reality. That is what I call practical spirituality. Think about it. There is a chance to find spirituality in everything and in everywhere. Wake up in the morning and it can be an oy vey moment, what is called a PCS, a pre-caffeine syndrome. Or it can be a split second of spiritual awakening. Modeh ani lefanecha. Thank you, God, for returning my soul to me on this day, so that I can spend the next 18 hours of my existence looking for opportunities. Practical Jewish spirituality is when we realize that every commonplace object in our homes, in our lives, comes from somewhere or from someone. Every item can be a memory trigger if we let it. A reminder to reflect on the history of what we surround ourselves with. And in that instance, it can be a powerful, prayerful existence and experience. Making coffee in the morning for somebody you love can be seen as a chore or an offering of adoration. Fixing, washing, eating, cleaning, playing, sharing, exercising, taking care of are all verbs waiting to be attached to our spiritual side. Practical Jewish spirituality makes us constantly look for that potential. And the synagogue experience can come alive through meditative technique and the searching of the soul, which was developed centuries before transcendental meditation ever made it onto the scene. And I'm here to tell you that you can have a formula to success, to happiness, to fulfillment. It's all there in Jewish tradition. It's a formula. It's an algorithm. A story, true story. Did a motivational seminar on finding joy. Traveled the country. That giving goodness and love and depth with another formula adds and creates success every single time you use it, in everything you do. The Saturn division of General Motors brought me down to Spring Hill, Tennessee, in an effort to make customer service and going the extra mile for the consumer a trademark of theirs. There is no more Saturn. I guess I didn't do that good. But I gave my spiel on the profitability of goodness and love and depth. And the owners of the Saturn dealerships which sat for it weren't buying it for a second. It was dead in the room, dead. I suggested to them that in the next few days, they were going to be making a deal. And if they could just use it once, use the formula once, that they would not ever stop using it again, that it would be very profitable for them. I waited for 3 days, and a call came. It was a dealer from Florida, Central Florida. He said to me that a retired professor reached the dealer by phone in a panic. "You got to do me a favor," the professor began. "My wife has been to your showroom several times. She wants to buy a white Saturn. I told her that I would think about it, but I haven't gotten around to it. But something happened today. I woke up this morning and my wife told me that I forgot our anniversary. I told her that our anniversary isn't for another couple of months. That's when she told me how hurt she was. She said it wasn't that anniversary she's talking about. And then I remembered. You said," she said, "you said we'd celebrate this day for the rest of our lives every year." "Well," the professor continued, "I told her the day was young, wasn't over yet, and that I hadn't really forgotten. So now you have to get me off the hook," said the professor. "You got to do something for me." The professor gave his credit card number to the dealer, begged him to get the car ready in an hour, as if the professor had ordered it days before. The dealer, with a sense of humor, agreed. Told the professor he didn't have to worry about a thing. All he had to do was ask for the owner. He'd take care of all the rest. And that's what he did. He waited for the professor and his wife to come in. But before that time, he set the scene with one car, a white Saturn, in the middle of the showroom, no other cars. When the professor introduced himself, he made a call and told all of his salesmen to get off the floor and to take their customers with them to the sides, so that the only two people in the center of that room would be the professor and his wife. The professor went to see the sticker to find out exactly how much he was buying the car for. That's when he heard the scream and the crying. He ran to his wife's side, and she was standing there pointing. He looked at what she was pointing at, and it was a huge red bow on the top of the car. And on the windshield of that car was a huge white placard, and on it it said the following words: "To Julie, happy anniversary. 2 years cancer-free. Love, Howard." "Well, Rabbi, I never saw a wife hug a man so tight," said the dealer. "I gave him the keys, told the maintenance crew to open up the doors so they would drive that car into happily ever after. And everyone there that day, they didn't know which to do, cry or clap. Most of them did both. But that isn't the best part, Rabbi. The best part is there were 7 customers in the showroom that day. Everyone told me that I was the nicest man in the Western world. And every single one of them bought a car. Close to every customer who's come in since has told me about that story on that day. You know, Rabbi, you Jews, you really know how to do business, don't ya? Not quite the way I expected it to go down, but good enough. And the takeaway is that rabbi over there, name is Nosanchuk, a.k.a. TK. He knows how to make it happen. I taught him. I taught him very well. He was weaned on it. And I'm here to tell you he's better at it than I am. All he needs is for somebody to say to him, do it.